Jens, welcome. So as a word of quick intro, so you are the CEO of Jaunt VR. Jaunt VR is a startup developing the hardware, software tools for cinematic VR, and we're going to talk about what that means. Company is based in the Bay Area, and you guys have raised about $100 million across 4 rounds. Most recently, $65 million led by Walt Disney, which I think is very interesting. But so you are one of the companies very much at the forefront of this new VR wave, and we're excited to have you. So we're going to get into a number of different things, but I'd love to start with maybe your background. So you're a classically trained computer scientist person, right, with a PhD in computer science, I believe. And tell us about what you did before this and how you came to starting Jaunt.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm a technology guy. I'm a computer scientist, and I'm a serial offender. I've done this. This is my 4th company that I've started. Before this, I did a software middleware company in the 90s called Visogenic that we took public. I did a company in 2000 in the first big bubble.com bubble called WebSwap. We were the leader in swapping books and CDs online, and that company ended up making a big hole in the ground. It didn't go anywhere. We couldn't raise, once the nuclear winter hit, we couldn't raise money for that company. I then sort of semi-retired, moved to Europe, spent 3 years in London, then decided to come back, and started my 3rd company, which was a semantic search company. We were the first to process the entire Twitter fire hose. And we ended up selling that to Flipboard, which is a popular iPad app. And then Jaunt is the 4th company that I've started.
It's quite a journey.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Yeah.
Yes, wonderful. So what is cinematic VR? And I guess perhaps most importantly, what did you guys choose to focus on that part of the market as an entry point?
It was really when I tried the Oculus Rift, the headset, the DK1. This was back when it was released. It was actually sold out, so I had to go and find it on Craigslist. Somebody had it. They were selling it in Palo Alto, and I was able to buy one. And I tried it on, and it was just amazing. But all the content they had was gaming content. And so it occurred to myself and my co-founders that, well, hey, what if we could actually bring reality into virtual reality? What if you could capture reality with a camera and process it and create kind of a virtual experience? Could you feel actually teleported to wherever the camera was capturing? And that's what we set about building. So we spent the first summer basically building our first prototype camera, and it worked surprisingly well. You know, when people tried it, they were kind of blown away because they hadn't seen that before. And, I've done a number of fundraisers, but this was by far the easiest. We had no slides. We just said, hey, try this. And the people, they tried it, and they said, well, how much do you want, essentially? And so that was great, and it sort of got us running.
Great. And so it sounds like you're building very much a full stack company. Is that accurate? Meaning that you build which by the way is fairly common in early markets. But you do the hardware, the software, the studios. Can you?
Yeah. So we're doing a lot of things right now. So we have the Jaunt 1 camera, which is a very advanced professional level VR camera. I think it's really the best camera for producing VR. We have a whole cloud-based rendering system. That again is probably the core of our IP, is our ability to basically render and create VR experiences automatically. Then we have an app that we have recently released that basically hosts the content that our partners use. And we have a studio in LA, in Santa Monica, that's basically the hub that partners with the content creators. So we work with a company, you mentioned Disney is one of the companies we work with. ABC, we work with sports leagues like the NFL. We work really with premium content creators, and our goal is to get them to produce VR on our platform. And by having an automated platform, that's a big advantage. So a lot of other companies do VR, and they're able to do great pieces, but it's a very manual process. It takes weeks, sometimes months, to produce a piece, whereas by having an automated pipeline, you can do it in hours. So that's kind of our current advantage, and we're really signing up premium partners and have them create as much content as possible so that we can release that to the end users. So right now the revenue we have is really from our partners. Long term, the really scalable business model is sort of what Netflix and Hulu and these other companies do, which is subscriptions. But we need to get there first. We need a big, large catalog of content before that becomes a viable business model.
And so, fast forward 5 years, do you think you'll still be in the hardware business, or are you evolving towards being the software and platform?
Yeah, we're really a software and platform business primarily. I think right now it's a huge advantage to have a high-end camera, but the hardware business is a very tough business, and we said from day one, we're not a camera company. We're really a platform content company. And so it wouldn't surprise me if that's not a business we're in 5 years from now.
Okay. So while it's still around, tell us more about the actual camera, and because what you see a lot is people trying to get GoPros together and trying to get something. So that's, I guess, the lowest end of the market, and you at the highest end, right? So what do you guys? Yeah,
so we did that. Our first prototype we built was obviously with off-the-shelf components, and in that case it was machine vision cameras. And we actually 3D-printed a round shell. We used Shapeways out here to 3D print the shell. It was okay. The quality, as I said, it got us funded and started. And then we also have experience with GoPro rigs. GoPros that were not designed to be part of a rig, so you had to modify them. You had to add heat sinks, you had to add external power, larger storage, and even then the results are not great. And what happens is, if you work with a professional Hollywood level director, they're not going to want to work with GoPros. They want to work with professional level cameras. So we decided early on that we had to build our own camera. So we're basically building modules that have very high-end sensors. Much bigger sensors than what you'd find in consumer level camera, much better lenses. They're designed for VR, so they have heat properties that make them suitable for putting them in a rig so they don't overheat. They're fully synchronized. One of the sensors we use is global shutter, so that literally, every module is taking the image at the same time. We support high frame rates, 60, 90, up to 120 frames a second. So all of these things are really, things that we realized were issues with the current solutions, and set about building that. And it was interesting watching the first talk about sort of, essentially doing kind of not high volume, but medium volume production, because that's what we're doing at the very high end in these cameras. It will never be a consumer camera. I mean, it's a very high price point. Initially it was actually hard to get hold of the best components. We had to establish a name for ourselves before the best manufacturers would even talk to us. And once we did that, we were able to get the best sensor and the best lens and so on. But there's definitely kind of a hole in the market there.
And the software is all computer vision, so presumably you have to stitch all these images.
Right. So that's probably the core of the IP. So we have a team of computer vision PhDs who've been working for a couple of years now, and I'd say still an unsolved problem, how to do it right, because it's very complex and data intensive to create a VR experience. You have to stitch things with depth. So it's easy to do a monoscopic stitch, or easy, it's relatively easy. But once you have 3D, it gets really hard. You kind of have to know the depth, or at least guess at the depth of objects in the image. And we've now gotten to the point where it's good enough that the automated solution doesn't really require any human intervention. So that was really the big breakthrough late last year when we're able to achieve that. Because what that means is that our partners can essentially be autonomous. They can shoot VR. Like ABC News took our camera to first Syria, and then they took it to North Korea. And they uploaded all the imagery. They did the automated rendering. and then they did editing. So typically what you do is you render the VR experience, you bring down a high-res version into your existing tool set, so you can edit like with Final Cut or Premiere, and add whatever special effects and so on. You then re-upload it to the cloud, and then we distribute it out into our app. But essentially, all we had to do was train their camera people for about a day on the camera, and then they were off and running. And obviously, they know how to do production. And that's the way I think cinematic VR is going to scale. It's going to be by existing premium content creators basically using these types of automated tools to create VR experiences, and then hopefully will end up in our platform, and you can view them there.
And does that work with standard editing tools? I mean, or do we need to create the rest of the chain as well?
Well, so it does work with standard editing tools. So those manufacturers, those providers, are essentially providing now plugins that work with VR. So, for example, editing a full VR, stereoscopic 360 takes some training, getting used to it. It's not obvious how to do that. But if you have a plugin that allows you to put a headset on, and then you can actually edit with the headset on, that makes it much, much easier.
Okay, great. So we talked about the hardware, the software. So in terms of content, so you're saying so people are figuring out quite easily in a day how to use it, which is quite.
Well, so they're figuring out how to use the camera, but they haven't necessarily figured out how to use VR.
And how to tell a story in VR.
How to tell a story. In fact, I don't think really anyone's figured that out properly. It's really a new medium, right? When you have the full 360 to work with. And what we see is a lot of people make the mistake of just using techniques they already know, where they're putting the action kind of in front of the camera, even though there really is no front of the camera. Some of those experiences are okay, but they're not taking full advantage of the medium. And so what's more exciting to me is working with creators who are really thinking through VR as a storytelling possibility, and thinking about, well, maybe we should have action going on over there, or we can use special effects, we can use lighting. There are all kinds of opportunities in VR that people are only beginning to sort of scratch the surface of.
Mm-hmm. And so for all of us, there is also a Jaunt app that people can try with a Google Cardboard.
Right, that's actually the majority. So we support pretty much every headset, but we also support mobile phones. So we support Android and iPhone, iOS, and you can just download the app. If you don't have a headset, you get a 360 experience. That's obviously not immersive, but at least you can watch the content. And you can get something like Cardboard or plastic versions of Cardboard for $10 now. There are even cases now that you can buy that you essentially press a button and the lens comes out of your smartphone. Probably, I would say about 85% of our users are using smartphones. And so for the type of content we do, it's really smartphones that's going to be the delivery mechanism. And that's very lucky. When we got started, we had no idea you could watch VR on smartphones. And then once we figured that out, we realized that the content we do actually plays on smartphones. So not all VR content is going to play on smartphones. So for example, gaming content, high-end gaming content, is doing a lot of real-time rendering and really requires essentially a big GPU, a big computer to play something like the Oculus Rift or the HTC Vive. Whereas the type of content we do is pre-rendered. It's pre-rendered up in the cloud and plays on your smartphone. So instead of having a few million potential endpoints, we have potentially billions. There are 2 billion smartphones out there today. So it's a much broader market.
Great. So taking a step back, the headsets are starting to ship. At the same time, they're super expensive, $829 for the Vive, $600 for the Oculus. So is it the moment? Is that the moment that we've all been waiting for? What's your sense of how that's going to play out over the next few months?
Well, I think this is the most important year in VR. So the important thing is those companies you mentioned, like Facebook, Oculus, HTC, Sony is going to release PlayStation VR. You have Samsung, obviously, with Gear VR. You have Google has just formed a VR division. Apple hasn't said anything except Tim Cook says VR is really cool. So that's gives you an idea what they might be up to. But all these, basically the biggest technology companies in the world are investing heavily in VR. And so that's great. It's great for the whole ecosystem. As I said, I think what's important about that is that people are going to be aware of VR. But the reality is, I think most people are not going to go out and spend $2,000 on a VR headset and a computer, but rather they'll access a lot of VR content through the smartphone. So for us, what's important about it is just the building of awareness of VR, and then being able to then release content to the general public.
So you I mean, obviously that you just said that it works better with a smartphone, the Jaunt experience, but do you think that the future of VR is absolutely smartphones and not the app stores of all those guys?
Yeah, basically. I think that, you know, the numbers of smartphones just dwarf the number of headsets, and that will be true for a long time. But I think what's going to happen is you're going to get much better mobile headsets. So having a smartphone in front of your face, I don't think is ideal, obviously. So I think what would be much better is really kind of a lightweight, dedicated, essentially glasses, if you will, that are maybe driven off your smartphone, so they're connected to your smartphone. Actually LG at the Mobile World Congress just released kind of a sort of early version of something like that, where you basically have a light headset that's attached to your phone. I think that's a much more realistic model going forward, and especially if you have essentially see-through headsets, so you can wear essentially glasses throughout your day, you know, and you're getting augmented and mixed reality throughout the day. You know, I'd see your name superimposed on you, your LinkedIn profile, etc. And then I sit down, I press a button, and then suddenly it goes dark, and I'm in a VR science fiction experience. I think that's the sort of attractive, more realistic future for VR in the next few years.
That's fascinating. So a combined VR and AR experience. Wow.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So in the short term, so there's headsets coming out, but there's a little bit of this chicken and egg problem, right? Where you have the headsets, but people are going to buy the headsets to get great content, but people to build great content want the headsets. Where do you see this going? I mean, as of now, a lot of the experiences, even on the Jaunt app, are like a minute long, which is great to get a taste, but right. People are going to want more.
Yeah, so they range generally from like 3 minutes. Our longest piece is about 17 minutes. It's actually a great piece. It's Collisions. It was done by Lynette Waldworth, who's an Australian filmmaker. And it was shown at the Davos World Economic Forum and at the Sundance Film Festival. And it's available in the app. That's probably the longest we've done so far. And the reason that it's short-form content is really because of the headsets. You know, we don't think people are ready to strap on a headset for, say, 2 or 3 hours. And in fact, our data suggests that, you know, most people will watch anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, you have the occasional user who will watch it for an hour and a half, and, you know, I wouldn't recommend that. It's probably not good for you. But you know, as the headsets get better and lighter, people are going to be able to do longer form content.
Okay, great. Last question from me, because I want to give people time to ask questions. So to the point that you just mentioned, any thoughts on live streaming in VR? Is that something that could make people precisely spend longer time, so like watching an entire game, for example?
Yeah. Again, I just don't think with the current headsets people are going to watch a 3-hour football game in VR. I mean, you have what we call the beer problem. You have the headset on, you want to drink beer, and it's just not a very practical solution right now. The other thing is you have to make a lot of compromises today with live. So people are doing live, and there are companies specializing in that. And I just think it's a little early. The quality isn't quite there. You have to make frame rate compromises, resolution compromises. There are a number of compromises you have to make in order to do live VR. I think these will be solved, maybe as early as next year. But for now, there's also the audience problem. You know, even with a few million headsets, for any live event, you'd have to get people who have a VR headset who want to watch that event at that exact same time. And so that's, I think that's a bit of a business issue for the people focusing on live. So we're much more excited about recorded kind of evergreen content that people can watch today, tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now. Those pieces can really gain a large audience over time, whereas, say, a sporting event, as soon as it's done, nobody really wants to watch it again.
Yeah. Great question. I think that's the only mic we have, so sure.
I'm curious as to what John's sort of philosophy is when it comes to partnering with content creators.
Yeah, so that's actually increasing a lot as we speak. So that's accelerating. And that's because we finally rolled out what we call our 2.0 cloud solution that is truly fully automated. And so that was a bit of a hindrance in the past where we had to sort of handhold each partner. And now we're aggressively signing up kind of premium content partners. And, you know, I kind of have a goal to be the first to get to 100 premium content partners before anybody else.
So yeah, I'm just curious about the post-process of these processed images, or like the stereo images get to be processed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, so again, it takes a little training. If you just take the raw image, what you essentially have, depending on the exact format, is a full kind of panoramic 360, one for your left eye and one for your right eye. Sometimes it's even a little more complex than that, in that you may, just for efficiency purposes, have the poles separate, you know, the North Pole and the South Pole. And but you can bring that into Premiere or Final Cut or After Effects and do work on that. But it requires a little bit of training. Now, a lot of these companies are actually working on plugins so that they recognize those formats and give you a much, you know, better version of that you can view with glasses and a headset and so on.
Do you get a test pass with the image?
Yeah, so we have that available. So it depends on the tool you're using. But yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Did you guys look into the possibility of repurpose existing content and take it in a way it's still
Yeah, so what most people are doing is with existing content, and you know, it's kind of funny, at Sundance I heard the term flatties for the first time, and that's how people are referring to kind of 2D movies. And the way they're bringing that into VR, you know, I think it's a little hokey, but people kind of like it, is, you know, create a kind of a CG, like in Unity, movie theater experience, and then you have the movie actually playing up on a virtual screen. So that's one way you can repurpose it. It's not really turning it into VR, it's just a way of just watching the existing movie. If you had to take existing IP and do true VR, I think the only way to do it is if there's a full 3D model of the content. So there are some animation, there are some properties out there that actually do have a full 3D model built that they've used. And I think those you could potentially bring into VR, where you could actually be in the middle of the action. The problem with a lot of that is, you know, that whole industry tends to work with older generation software. Sometimes the software gets obsoleted, and so if a title is, say, 10 years old, you know, may literally be impossible to bring it back up to speed because the software doesn't really exist anymore. Right. So the question is, you know, does our cloud-based rendering solution work with other cameras? And the answer is yes. So we support, in addition to Jaunt camera, we support some GoPro rigs, and we also announced support for Nokia's new Ozo camera that's coming out. And so we don't want the camera to be an issue. You know, if people want to use, you know, a different camera than the Jaunt one, that's fine. You know, we really want to make sure that the high-quality content gets created. Somebody back. Yeah.
the most important part about actually making VR available to people around the world? I mean, clearly people are investing in VR. Clearly VR is really important. It's not important because it's next generation technology. It's important because it's the next frontier of communication. So, because it's the next frontier of communication, it's ultimately imperative that it's accessible to everyone. What do you really think the next frontier of making that accessibility something that is going to succeed? What is the next phase where VR is actually going to become accessible to people? Is that Facebook, Oculus? Is that something your company's working on? For someone who's not really focused on skill full time, what is the next step that's really, really interesting to you that you're super excited about?
Oh, so a number of things. One thing is really, just better headsets. So those need to come online, and they will come online. I mean, the current generation of smartphones were not designed for VR. I mean, it's shocking it works, frankly. I mean, I was shocked because, what are the odds that, it has the right sensors and the right resolution? But the next generation will. So that's important. The second thing is, VR needs to add some capabilities. We need more social in VR. So right now it's a very isolating experience. And if you truly want to have shared experiences, it's got to be social. And I think it will begin with audio so that you'll be able to talk to your friends in VR. You'll be able to share the same experiences. So that I'm excited about. So just in terms of accessibility, I do think the low price point of VR on smartphones is the way that's going to happen. The high-end what we call tethered headsets, headsets that are tethered to a computer, I think will remain, at least for a few years, a relatively kind of niche market.
Sit down with all the VR device, watch news and the movies. Do you think whether it may take 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And what's the point of sitting together, watching the video stuff?
Oh, I think that, well, I don't know necessarily sitting together, but I think what would be cool is you could sit with your friend in California and go to a concert together or watch a sporting event together. I mean, I think that's cool in a virtual world. And again, the best experience will be essentially having glasses so that I can actually look at you wearing the glasses. People, when we started off saying, well, VR will be great for teleconferencing. But no, it's not great because you're wearing this big headset and, you look stupid talking to each other. That really does need to be solved in terms of the headset again. But yeah, sharing things with people across the country, even across the world, I think it's going to be extremely powerful. The other thing is once you have essentially these VR/AR glasses, you don't need these monitors anymore, right? You will just have you'll have 16 monitors if you want to look at. That's going to be powerful.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.